Sasha Banks is currently regarded as one of the best wrestlers in the world. She has also had huge success in the acting world and become a mainstream celebrity. During her time in WWE, she has won the Raw Women's title 5 times, the SmackDown Women's title once, the NXT title once, and the tag titles twice. Which makes it crazy to think she only just turned 30 years old. To celebrate Sasha Banks' recent birthday, we have decided to look back on the best pay-per-view matches Sasha has had in her 20s. For this list, we have decided to focus on main roster pay-per-view matches only. From battles with her fellow 4 horsewomen to matches with other top female stars. Let's rank Sasha Banks' top 10 pay-per-view matches of her 20s. In 10th place, we have Sasha Banks' first ever successful women's title defense on pay-per-view, as the Boss put her gold on the line against Carmella at the 2020 TLC pay-per-view. In a storyline which saw Carmella debut a new untouchable beauty gimmick after attacking Sasha Banks on SmackDown in November of 2020. We saw weeks of short segments, broken champagne bottles, and the debuting Reginald, who Sasha actually managed to have a good match with. This title match was a fast-paced match with multiple high-flying spots which benefited the two, with several close falls and interference from Reginald. The match ended when Sasha made Carmella tap out to her Banks statement submission move. The TLC pay-per-view match was without a doubt the highlight of this feud and possibly the best match of Carmella's career. In 9th place is the match that saw the debut of the women's tag team titles in 2019. The match itself was a 6-team elimination chamber match, as Sasha teamed with Bayley to take on the teams of Fire and Desire, Peyton and Billy, Jax and Snuka, Riot Squad, Naomi and Carmella. Sasha and Bayley started the match with Mandy and Sonya, after the entrance and elimination of the other 4 teams. The match ended with the same teams that started it, which saw a great battle between the two teams with several close falls and clever spots. After a mistake from Mandy and Sonya, Sasha Banks locked in the Banks statement on Sonya Deville to get the victory and to win the titles. After wrestling over 30 minutes inside Elimination Chamber, Sasha and Bayley deserved to be the first team to win the women's tag team titles. In 8th place is the match which saw the Divas division transform into the women's division, as Charlotte Flair defended her championship against Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 32. Considering this was the WrestleMania debut for all 3 of these women, this showed how quickly the trio became the top faces of the women's division. The trio debuted on Raw in July of 2015 after their NXT call-up, and 9 months later the trio were a top match at WrestleMania. During this time frame, Charlotte had won the Divas title in September 2015 and held it till WrestleMania, with Becky challenging her on several occasions. Throughout this time, Sasha was gaining popularity due to the crowd wanting her to be involved in these title matches, and eventually she was. Before the match even started, Sasha felt like a star as her cousin Snoop Dogg performed her entrance as Sasha wore Eddie Guerrero-inspired ring gear. The match itself saw great high-flying, submission and technical spots. The match ended with Ric Flair pulling Sasha out of the ring to allow Charlotte to make Becky tap out. Many consider this match to be the match that stole the show at the highest attended WrestleMania ever. A great way to say goodbye to the Divas division. Many fans believe Sasha should have won this, which is not the first time that is said about a match on this list. Up next in 7th is another match fans believe Sasha Banks should have won instead of Charlotte, as the two stepped inside Hell in a Cell for the first time. As well as being the first 2 women to step inside the cell, they also became the first 2 women to ever main event a pay-per-view. This match took place in the middle of a heated feud between the two, however this time Sasha had the hometown advantage in Boston for this match. Before the bell rang, Charlotte attacked Sasha and put her through the announce table. This led to doctors tending to Sasha and trying to stop the match. After refusing, Sasha entered the cage to have a 20-minute battle with Charlotte, which saw many chair, table, and cell spots and several close finishes. Unfortunately, this match is remembered more for the ending rather than the quality of the match, which is why it's not ranked higher in this video. The ending was rather botched and embarrassing, which became the talking point of this match, and is why several fans remember this match, as Charlotte's 2 attempts to throw Sasha through a table only resulted in an unbroken table and Sasha Banks receiving a huge wedgie. Following this, Sasha rolled off the table, got hit with natural selection, and got pinned in her hometown as Charlotte won the championship. Sasha and Charlotte tended to have better matches on episodes of Raw rather than pay-per-views, and this is hopefully a feud we see soon again. In 6th place is a Raw vs SmackDown match that took place at Survivor Series 2020 between the 2 female champions at the time, Sasha and Asuka. The pair wrestled each other at Extreme Rules and SummerSlam over the Raw title. The matches were good but always saw Bayley influence the finish. 3 months later, the pair had a rematch without any outside interference, which resulted in a clean wrestling match between two. The match saw a good blend between technical and submission spots before Sasha managed to score the win with a roll-up. The match itself was pointless as there was nothing at stake, but it was a joy to just see the two do what they do best, which is wrestle. In 5th place is the match that took place more recently in this list, which is the triple threat at Crown Jewel between Becky, Bianca and Sasha. The match, which pitted the 3 SmackDown Women Champions of 2021 against each other for the championship, had special interest due to the draft. In the build-up to this match, we saw Sasha, Bianca, Becky and even Charlotte have some great matches against each other on Raw and SmackDown. In the draft, Becky and Bianca were drafted to Raw, which made fans believe Sasha Banks should win, but yet again she didn't. Becky Lynch won after rolling up Sasha Banks to retain the title in Saudi Arabia. Despite the loss, Bianca and Sasha looked good in the match. In 4th place, Sasha Banks had her highest profile opponent of her career as she faced former UFC star Ronda Rousey at the 2019 Royal Rumble for the Raw Women's title. Going into this match, Ronda was undefeated since her debut 10 months earlier and was expected to face Becky and/or Charlotte at WrestleMania 35. Before this match, WWE needed an opponent that could have a great match with Ronda, and Sasha was the perfect opponent. The match saw a blend of nice submission holds and technical wrestling moves, which is something Sasha hadn't got much chance to do leading up to this. At this point, Sasha had a rough few years in random tag matches. So being in a high-profile match again was a delightful sight to see again for fans. Despite being the only opponent Ronda pinned to beat during her run, fans considered this to be Ronda's best match and credited that to Sasha Banks. 2 months later, the two took a break from the company. Since then, Sasha has become one of the biggest names in the company. It would be interesting to see if we ever get a rematch between Ronda and Sasha. Sasha Banks' biggest match of her career is the 3rd-placed match on this list, as Sasha main event day 1 of WrestleMania 37 against Bianca Belair. After Bianca won the 2021 Royal Rumble match, Bianca chose Sasha to be her opponent at WrestleMania 37 in 2021. This was the first ever one-on-one women's WrestleMania main event, and the match certainly delivered. Leading up to the match, the feud was underwhelming and did not feel like a WrestleMania main event, as WWE decided to push Reginald during this feud rather than focusing on Bianca and Sasha for some reason. The video package team saved this feud. Despite the bad storyline leading up to the match itself was fantastic. The match played to the strengths of the two as we saw Sasha use her submission and high-flying ability, while Bianca impressed with her power moves. The ending provided us with a WrestleMania moment as Bianca used her own hair to whip Sasha and then hit her with KOD to win the title. The visual of the scar on Sasha's body and the noise of the hair whip is something that will be remembered by fans. On this night, Bianca became a star and Sasha Banks got her well-deserved WrestleMania main event in a match that stole night 1. In 2nd place is the match that saw Sasha Banks enter Hell in a Cell for the 2nd time, as she stepped inside the cell with Becky Lynch in 2019. Unlike her previous Hell in a Cell match, this match is remembered for the quality of the match and not a Sasha wardrobe malfunction. Leading up to the match, Sasha returned to the company by turning heel and changing her hair from pink to blue. This new version of Sasha immediately targeted the Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch, in a feud that saw good matches and promos between the two. The feud ended at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in a 20-minute match inside the cell. The match saw Sasha attack Becky before the bell, just like Charlotte had done to Sasha in their Hell in a Cell match in 2016. When the match began, we saw several creative spots using weapons such as kendo sticks, chairs, ladders, and a table which broke this time. After a series creative spots and good wrestling, Becky threw Sasha off the top rope onto a bed of steel chairs and followed with the armbar to get the win. Despite the loss, Sasha Banks looked good in the match and gained momentum, which led to her becoming one of the top stars on the roster. However, this was not Sasha's last trip inside Hell in a Cell. In 1st place is Sasha Banks' final visit inside the Hell in a Cell structure as she stepped inside with the final 4 Horsewoman member, Bayley. Throughout 2020, most fans considered the Sasha and Bayley partnership to be the highlight of the show. As shows were taking place in the Performance Center and the Thunderdome, Sasha and Bayley were still able to have entertaining matches and promos. WWE had spent the past 4 years teasing fans about a Sasha versus Bayley feud, with fans speculating who would turn on the other first. After losing their 2nd tag title reign had ended, the turn eventually happened as Bayley turned on Sasha Banks at the end of summer 2020. 2 months later, the two stepped inside Hell in a Cell with Bayley's SmackDown Women's title on the line, which she had held for the past year. The story of the match saw Bayley introduce the chair that she used when she injured Sasha when she turned on her 2 months previous. The match saw several spots featuring weapons such as tables, ladders, chairs, kendo sticks, steel steps, fire extinguisher and spray paint for some reason. The match ended with Sasha trapping Bayley in the chair she had previously used to injure Sasha and applying the Banks statement on her. This would give Sasha Banks her first Hell in a Cell win and her first SmackDown Women's Championship. If her 20s were this good, just imagine the matches she will be having in her 30s. That's our list. Let us know your opinion in the comments below and suggest who we could focus a video on next. Thanks for watching.